I'm joined today by John Scotcher, author of the acclaimed The Boy in Winter's Grasp. Hi John, you are now a member of the Fantastic Books publishing family, and my first question is, what made you approach Fantastic Books?
Hi. Well, I'd heard some good things about Fantastic Books from a friend who was in the Elite Dangerous community. So I read a couple of the books that FB had already published and decided that I was impressed with the quality of the work. Then I started following Dan, FB's head honcho, on Twitter and Facebook. Now, initially I'd self-published The Boy in Winter's Grasp. Seeing how much reach Dan had on social media, I sent him a copy of the e-novel, hoping that he might just put out a kind word for me. As it turned out, he sent me back a lovely email, having spent the whole morning struggling to put the book down. He did indeed very kindly broadcast about me to his networks, even though at that point there was nothing in it for him. Well, one thing led to another, and about 6 months later I was sitting in a cafe in Hull with Dan, discussing Fantastic Books relaunching the novel under the FB banner. It's all been go from there, really. The book was launched at Fantasticon, and it's been steadily growing ever since under the guiding hand of FB. Next, we're looking at doing the full audiobook version. It's all been pretty exciting.
The main character in The Boy in Winter's Grasp is Christopher Flight. That's a really interesting surname, given how it resonates with the way the story unfolds. How did you come up with the name, and does it have a bearing on his character?
Ooh, good question. 2 reasons. Originally, he was going to be Christopher Light, named, well, last name anyway, after a director I worked with on a commercial some time ago whose name stuck in my head. I just liked the spelling of it. However, Light felt a bit too lightweight, too flimsy. Then I remembered Brideshead Revisited. The Marchman's family in that are called the Flights. The BBC series in the 80s made a great impression on me, and it tickled me to use the same last name. Hence, Christopher became a Flight. At that point, I didn't realise there would be other reasons that his name being Flight would be apt, but people will have to read the book to find out why.
One of the most fascinating players is the Master. Where did you get the inspiration for such a powerful and dangerous character?
The characters that live in one's head. I do like the Master. He's such fun to write as he's completely amoral. Essentially, he's a sociopath, or at least that's the way he reads in the first book. There's a great deal more to him than that, but spoilers, you know? As to where he came from, he's one of the few characters that survived from my very first stab at this story. I wrote a comic script when I was at uni in 1991, set in World War I and the time of King Arthur. The Master started life there. What the very first inspiration was would be a question you'd need to ask 21-year-old me. Unfortunately, he's no longer available for comment. One thing I can tell you is 21-year-old me loved the 1937 version of The Prisoner of Zenda. At least some of the Master comes from Rupert of Hentzau, as played by Douglas Fairbanks Jr. In fact, it was images from that film that the illustrator for the novel's promotional artwork used when creating a look for the Master.
The Boy in Winter's Grasp has already been described as Harry Potter meets Tolkien. How does it feel to be compared to such literary heavyweights?
Slightly ill. Seriously though, it's a very nice thing for people to say. I stayed away from Harry Potter until I'd written well over half the book. It took me a very long time. So I came a little late to that particular party. When I did read them though, I loved them. Tolkien's pretty much incomparable. Not actually one of my favourite authors, but one can't help but acknowledge what a genius he was. The real influences on me were Neil Gaiman, who I've loved since his Sandman days, and Stephen King, for his ability to juggle an ensemble cast in the third person without any effort at all. But hell, I'll take the description if it piques more people's interest in what I do.
Another thing that reviewers home in on are your strong female characters. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, most of the characters in the book are based on real people, so I think that's a comment on the strong women that are my friends. In particular, The two main females, Sama and Leela, are based on two real people. It made them the easiest characters to write, as I was able to reference what their actual counterparts would do if I ever hit a block. And it's worth saying, we all know there aren't enough strong female role models out there in fiction compared to male. I'm delighted that people have responded to the ones I've created and seen them as real, well-rounded characters. I hope I can continue in the same vein.
As well as directing film, designing some of the world's most beautiful websites, and creating The Boy in Winter's Grasp, you are also an outspoken proponent of the British indie author movement. You are the driving force behind ChatterBooks Online, an online platform where people can discover the best and brightest of indie author talent. So can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to set this channel up and what your hopes are for its future?
I can, and they're not necessarily the reasons you'd expect. I love the fact it's so easy for authors to get their work out there these days. But, and don't hate me for saying it, there's a price to pay for that. For every great self-published book that comes out, there are dozens of not great at all books. Books released before they're ready, books released without even the most basic story editing, and books that are just plain bad. Yet amongst that, the great books get released. There's a lot of wading through the rest to find them. It saddens me that potentially great voices are not heard amongst the noise. I started ChatterBooks because I want to help point people in the direction of books that I think are worth reading. So I trawl through self-published books, or those published by small press houses, and try to find the good stuff. Just trying to do my little bit to promote work that impresses or touches me. For the future, if it takes off, it's very early days, I'd like to invite guest readers to read the independent stuff that they like. I'm a great fan of the spoken word and love to listen to audiobooks. Perhaps there are budding readers out there who want to build up a portfolio of readings to help get into it professionally. I'm also hoping, if things take off, I can do some interviewing too.
You have a real talent for names. First, The Boy in Winter's Grasp, and now ChatterBooks. So what inspired you to call it ChatterBooks?
I cheated. I told my friends on Facebook what I was doing and asked them for suggestions. My friend Alison came up with it, and the fit was perfect. It actually turns out that the reading agency has a kids' book program named the same, but I'm sure there's room for two ChatterBooks. If it turns out further down the line there isn't, I will ask the Fantastic Books community to help me rename it.
And just one more question, if I may. When will the next instalment of Christopher Flight's adventures be landing in Fantastic Books editorial dungeons?
Haha, that depends. If Fantastic Books sell enough that I can take more time out of running the web business to write. The first one took me 10 years to do. In my defence, I was setting up a very busy company. Never try to run a small business and be a writer at the same time. The two clash terribly. Joking apart, I'm planning for Christmas 2017. I have the complete blueprint of the new book ready, and I'm chugging through the chapters. I just need to sacrifice some things to make room for write, like eating and, a life.
The Boy in Winter's Grasp deserves to sell 1 million, John. It's an excellent book. Thanks for chatting. It's been great to get to know a little bit more about you and your work. And how would you like to end? Perhaps you could tell us a little something about how people can get your book, and perhaps why they should want to.
Well, they can of course be bought on Amazon, but the best place to buy them is www.fantasticbookstore.com. That's Fantastic Books' own site, so they don't pay the giant Amazon beast any of the sales. And as to why, well, if you like a rip-roaring dark fantasy adventure that's a little bit scary, with, I hope, a strong cast of characters of both sexes and lots of intrigue, it's the book for you. And as the first third is available completely free from the Fantastic Books website, it's easy to try it out and see if you like it before you buy.
That's great. Thanks again for joining us, John.
Thanks for having me. If you want to know more, head to my author page on www.fantasticbookstore.com. There's links to my ChatterBooks and my own website. Cheers then. Bye.